Welcome to the podcast, where we teach you how to create marketing that pops. Get ready for refreshing conversations with industry experts, trendsetters, and creative minds that'll leave you bubbling with inspiration. Get ready to turn up the volume on your business. Let's get talking. All right, welcome back to Marketing That Pops. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Michelle.
And today we are joined by Amy Donahue. She's a social media expert and the co-founder of Hybrid Social, which is Arizona's first cannabis-focused marketing agency. She has a pretty interesting story, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit, about her journey through social media and how she got her start. But Amy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Olivia and Michelle. I'm so happy to be here.
We're excited to have you.
So, Amy, I was just telling you, at the top of each of our episodes, we start with a myth that we like to get debunked. And so today's no different. I have a myth here for you. So here's the myth. You can't create as strong communities on social media like you used to. What do you have to say to that?
Oh, that's definitely a myth because the first word of social media is social. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what we do. Posting is about 10% of what social media is. The other 90% is strategy and analytics, but it's about community. It's called social media, not buy my crap media. So if you have the right person doing the job, you will have a great community around your brand on social media, no matter which network.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
I know with like all of the algorithms and everything changing, a lot of people have been saying like, it's hard to create communities, but I think it is a little bit harder than it used to be, but it's still, their opportunities are still out there. You just got to make them.
Mm-hmm. You do, and you have to acknowledge that Meta is not the only network. There's Instagram you should not put all your eggs into the Instagram bucket, but there are great ways to create communities on Instagram. I just don't feel like that should be the be all end all. And I don't even think it should be your first choice when it comes to building community for your cannabis brand. Unfortunately, it's an industry addicted to everything Zuckerberg. Even if it doesn't work for you, it's really hard to get people to think outside that box.
Yeah. Well, glad that you brought that up because I have a couple questions later on that I want to get into kind of about that. But I'd love to just start with talking a little bit about your earlier career and like take us back to where your start was with social media.
I started social media in 2004. I live in Phoenix, and at the time I was a stand-up comedian. So I used MySpace to build my community, and then I became a radio DJ. So I used it to get listeners, but also to build relationships with my listeners. And I never just blasted out my message. I always interacted with people. And when I got off the air or got off stage, people would come up to me and say, "Oh, you're the fabulous one. We're friends on MySpace." And that is what it still should be, is drawing people in. It's marketing and PR are a lot of push. Social media is part of marketing, but it's pull. So yeah, and about a year after I got on there, I was actually a high school Spanish teacher at the time too. So my kids got me on MySpace and Friendster. Never logged into Friendster after I created my account, but I was hooked on MySpace. My top 16 friends, my top 32 friends. We could change that around back then. And as you notice, when you sign up for Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg is not your friend, and he really is not your friend in this industry. But in 2005, there was a small mom and pop air conditioning company here in Chandler, which is a suburb of Phoenix. And she asked me, she's like, "Can you help me put my business on here?" And I said, "Why would you want your business on here? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." And here we are now. And so that evolved into Facebook, and I actually started doing it for a living, like actually getting paid for it as an employee full time in 2011. I was in the middle of donating a kidney after seeing a tweet, and I got fired from my job. And a Twitter follower, my story was huge here in Phoenix. We were on the news. Today Show came out a couple times. It was a really big story. And then I lost my job because I missed my sales goals while I was going back and forth to the Mayo Clinic to test to save a life. And one of my Twitter followers sent me a message and said, "We saw what happened today. We know that you know what you're doing and we'd like to hire you." So I started working for them for about a year, and then they lost a major government contract when a lot of the troops were coming back from overseas in 2011, 2012. And he said, "You need to be doing this on your own." And I was terrified, but I posted that day on Facebook, "Hey, I'm taking on clients. I'm going off on my own. Who's with me?" And within 5 minutes, I was hired by 2 auto dealerships that were owned by the same person, but one of my girlfriends was the main admin assistant there. So she's like, "We need you." And that was the beginning of me actually doing social media for a living for myself. And it was scary. I was 40 something at the time, basically starting all over again. But it was great because things were still kind of small. So I could dig into the back end, learn about the analytics, learn about target audiences and where they are, what time they're on, and what days they're online. And that's kind of what I concentrate on to this day when it comes to implementing a social media strategy, which you also have to have. Uh, for doing social media for cannabis businesses. I got into cannabis in 2012.
Mm. I love that. That's such an interesting backstory. So I hear like, some of the tools that you're still using from then you're using now. Is there anything else that you kind of feel like you've brought with you like along these years as you progress through social media?
Maturity. I think, and it doesn't have anything to do with age. It comes from experience and understanding all these networks. Every single time a new network comes out, I am the early adopter. I've been on Blue Sky for 18 months when it was invite only, which happens to be my favorite now. So hopefully we can touch on that in a little bit. But I just you have to know every network that's out there, not just like the big 4 or 5, because if you get a client who's more niche, there used to be a great network called Ello, ELLO, and it was very photo rich. And I think it went away maybe 3 years ago. But up until then, there was great cannabis photography on there. So a lot of photographers would put their work on there. Tattoo artists, they would put their artwork on there as well. So it's really a real true social media manager. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody who's very busy and doesn't do this full time like I do. I live it. You have to know all the networks that are out there. You have to try them out. Tumblr is still popular. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's thinking outside that Zuckerberg box because even though it has the most users between Facebook and Instagram, that doesn't mean that with that saturation, you're going to get through in the algorithm. Not about selling your product. It's about branding and telling your product story and the people behind it. So I think for me, it's that maturity in not staying in the same box, not and being willing to evolve. And I think that's part of maturity overall, especially as women. We're constantly evolving to keep up in this world. So able to evolve as a social media manager and educating my clients on that. They're like, right, we'll try Reddit for a couple months. Let's see how it goes. So I think that that's the most important thing that a social media manager should have.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you, you kind of talked about diversifying your clients and, you know, choosing which platform that is. What are some of the ways in which, as marketers, we know we have to have a social media strategy, obviously. But what are some of the ways that you kind of start that off to kind of figure out where you're going to go with your clients for those different avenues?
Honestly, I have to educate people on their target audience before anything. And and it's one of the first things I ask is like, who is your target audience? And if you tell me it's anybody over 21 who smokes pot, we have to talk because not every brand is able to be marketed to every niche like that. So I do a lot of startup advising as well. And I didn't do that before until I got into this industry. And it truly is a startup industry full of a lot of people who have great ideas, but they never had a business before, or they never had to drive it and understand the marketing side of the business. So first is figuring out who the target audiences are, and then knowing where those people are spending the majority of their time. It's not always on Instagram. It's on other networks as well. So going back to what I said earlier is digging in and learning every single network. If a business owner tells me I want to be on just this, they have to tell me why and they have to give me evidence of why. And I like that I can see that light bulb go off sometimes like, oh, I get it now. And then maybe steer them somewhere else than what they were originally thinking.
I always tell people that, listen, we need to be marketing where our customers are hanging out. Like, where are they hanging out? Because that's where we need to be, whether it's like in-person events or social media or anything. It's like, what are they reading? What kind of like print publications are they looking at? What trade shows are they at? Those types of things. So it's just think about like your end client and where are they? Like, do they not have time to go on LinkedIn or are they on LinkedIn? It just really just depends.
And they should be on LinkedIn, by the way.
I know. Yes, I know for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of our that's like the hardest part is when you are in this industry and people are new to social media or trying to advertise in the same way that you would other products. It's like, no, we got to do this a little bit different. Um, when you were saying that you got your first cannabis client in 2012, how was that experience for you versus, coming into this industry versus maybe working with a little bit more traditional clients?
This I really miss that client and I learned a lot about everything we're talking about and it starts with branding. So
Mm,
my first cannabis client was a local rolling paper company here. It was really cute, really punny. They had videos, they had great packaging, they had these cool envelopes to send samples to celebrities, get Snoop
mhm,
Dogg to try our rolling papers and everything. And about a year later, he ran out of money, which is typical in this industry. But
mhm.
about a year after that, I'm just doing a search for the brand online. Somebody had hijacked the brand and was selling it at the time on Amazon. I don't know
Oh.
but he never trademarked his name. He never trademarked any of the concepts or anything.
Mhm,
And unfortunately, this awesome, fun brand is well, I don't know if it's still out there because I kind of lost heart for it when he told me, well, I never had the money to do this or I didn't know to do this.
mhm,
And
mhm,
that is something that experience sucked, but that knowledge helped me move forward with other clients.
mhm,
So, yeah, and that was back in the day when Facebook didn't shut stuff down yet. So, it
mhm.
was a lot more fun. It was a lot more memey, whereas nowadays, memes don't always work unless your brand is, something funny or on that end of the spectrum. It's not appropriate for everybody. So, that was a hard lesson to learn, and it really sucked losing that client.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Um,
So, Amy, what do you say to people? I mean, a lot of people that are getting into social media and wanting to be a social media manager, they, of course, want to do all of the fun, like the Instagram, the TikToks. But how do you talk to them about LinkedIn? Because I know LinkedIn is not necessarily as fun. You can make it fun, but like, How do you educate like younger, new social media people and the importance of LinkedIn?
Let me ask you to clarify that. Them as the person or the brands that they're handling?
I think both, like because in their mind, sometimes they think because that's where they're at, that's where everybody is at.
Right.
Mhm.
And that it's really hard to get through to those type of that type of talent that listen, just because you're there, that doesn't mean that's where everybody is. Like,
Mhm.
how do you educate younger people coming up in social media and trying to learn?
I would tell them, first of all, if you want to be taken seriously as a professional, you have to be on a professional network, whether that's LinkedIn or LeafWire. You have to have a professional presence. Do you want more clients? Do you want people to know about you? That is
Mhm.
where the cannabis industry lives, on LinkedIn. And so when it comes to younger people that want to get into it, and I ask them, I'm like, do you understand you'll be working at 7 o'clock at night? Do you understand that if the analytics tell you you'll be working on Saturdays? I think that people think it's all fun and games. And I will tell you with 100% certainty, social media is not fun to do. It's something that's essential for, for companies to have. Because it is a part of marketing. Does anybody look at marketing and say, "Oh, what a fun job." No, it's a grueling job. These are very grueling jobs. And just because you have 10,000 followers on Instagram doesn't mean you know how to market a professional company. So you had better be listening to people like us who've been in this industry for a while and follow our lead. I do mentor younger women in this industry and help them navigate that because if you're not on LinkedIn, I don't think you're professional. You're not, it's not just for getting jobs. And I just put out an email blast last week and it said this: why aren't your employees on LinkedIn? If you're so worried about them looking for another job, well, then you're the bad boss. But every single employee that you have should be on LinkedIn as well, because every time they comment on something, that little headline under your name that tells you where you work, it's exposure for your business. So if you're a professional person, it's no ifs, ands, or buts. You have got to be on LinkedIn, and that's where decision makers are. It's not DMing on Instagram. It's not going to be it. You have to be professional. This is a way more sophisticated industry than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Mhm.
You absolutely have to be there. And these companies, they have to get millions of dollars in investments. If you can't spend 15 minutes a day on a professional network, then you should not be doing the job. LinkedIn is part of social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good.
I'm getting off my soapbox. I get really passionate.
No, no, no. I love it.
No,
But
and
this.
like I try to like talk to, everyone about this, but everybody just wants to be on the Instagrams. Like, no, like
Right.
LinkedIn is really important and like we need to be on there. And so I'm glad that I'm not crazy and that, I have someone else supporting me. So,
Honestly, if Instagram went away tonight, like we dealt with TikTok over the weekend, I would
Right.
be happy as a pig in you know what, because it would force people to think
Mhm.
outside the Zuckerberg box.
mhm,
It is not the be all end all. It's the most detrimental to our industry.
That's true.
This is not the nicest analogy, but Instagram is the abusive boyfriend you keep going back to every time he punches you in the face because they shut you down. You create another user. Ugh,
Mhm.
don't get me started. I don't even feel it's for this industry. It's saturated. It's very,
Mhm.
very restrictive to us. They claim they changed their terms of service, but
Right.
the AI's already been trained to go after us. So what really changed?
Mhm. When I was reading your bio, you had mentioned that like Zuckerberg had caught on like in the earlier years. What did you mean by that when you said that?
I don't even remember what was in there. I think it here's my philosophy is nobody ever got high with him in college because he was creating a platform that was making fun of women, and that's Facebook. It was
Yeah.
really created as a swipe left, swipe right, hot
Mhm.
or not website, And again, if this weren't my job, I wouldn't be on there. I think that's gross. But he started catching on, I believe, because nobody ever took him out back to smoking doobie in college. And he was just like, well, screw these guys. I'm going to start taking ads for LSD and Delta 8. Like it's not the same across the board. And this is a heavily regulated industry. I understand it's not federally legal yet, but in states where there's medical or adult use programs, it is heavily regulated. So you're going to say that the thing that actually has to have test results and seed to sale tracking is going to be punished when I can see ads for psilocybin, which I'm all for. I love mushrooms, but that's not regulated anywhere. So, it's the hypocrisy of the big networks that bothers me the most. And I was raised by a hippie, and I've been an activist. My first march was I was 8 years old marching for my teachers. And so I get very passionate about this, but I just feel that even federal legalization, it will never change on Meta. And unfortunately, addiction is real, not just with drugs and alcohol and cigarettes, but social media platforms. I mean, look at how people reacted this weekend when TikTok was gone for 24 hours. The mental health aspect of it is another thing that kind of makes me not use his platforms as much personally.
Mhm. You brought up Reddit earlier, and I wanted to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on that? And, like, have you played around with that? And what kind of success have you seen with Reddit?
The thing about Reddit is that it is 180 degrees different than traditional social media. It's not about blasting any message out there. First of all, we should be supporting it because one of the first investors was Snoop Dogg. And that's like the godfather of the modern cannabis industry. And we should be supporting that. But it's also a great way to interact because your target audiences, if you're in cannabis, if you have a great brand out there, guess where they're talking about it? Not on Instagram, not on Facebook where Aunt Barb can see. It's on Reddit. You can create your own subreddit, which is like a Facebook group, or an account and jump into different subreddits where your target audiences are. And Reddit is the couch in the basement on that 70s show, and you have to be cool. This is not a place where, being in bikini and doing bong hits is not gonna fly there because these are the real enthusiasts who understand the products and the brands, and they will shut that down right away in subreddits. But I have had success in there in branding. It's not about tracking sales from that, it's about your karma. You don't get followers on Reddit like you do on other platforms. Yes, you can follow, but the follower number is not as important as the karma number. And the karma number is a grade based on your activity. So I've been on there since 2008. I have 16,000 karma, which means I'm active on there. You do not want to hire a social media manager who just created an account on there and has never used Reddit because they don't know how it works. And there is definitely an etiquette on there. So if you really want to touch your audience, that's where you need to be. And if you're not spending time on there, then you are missing out on a huge target audience. Every state and many cities have their own subreddits when it comes to cannabis. I had a Michigan client for about 18 months, and we were very active in the Michigan subreddit for cannabis. And it was a brand new flower brand, and we did really well on getting people to comment. They were posting more about the brand and just interacting more with consumers with that Reddit account. Is brand exposure. Because again, social media is not buy my crap media. It is social, pause for emphasis, media. And people have forgotten that, and it makes me really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I've been talking about it too with my team for a few years now. And as an agency, like we just get so like bombarded and like, you're just trying to get the job done and sometimes it's hard to like get out there and really like, I guess do all the research and things like that. But that's important to do, and it's good to hear other people that are, yeah, like that is, we do need to be on Reddit and so forth. So I'm glad to hear that. So thank you for.
And every day. This is not, oh, did you check in with Reddit this month? No, no, you have to be there every day. Just like on Instagram, you have to be social every day. You have to watch stories. You have to comment on posts. You can't do everything through Meta. You actually have to have the Instagram app on your phone to do a lot of the features of the app. And it's just incredible to me, the amount of people that think, oh, did you post today? Well, that's after a lot of work has been done. What time are you going to post? Did you look at the analytics? Is today a good day to post? So, like Monday, there was so much noise in the world, not going into all of it, but there was a lot of things going on. I didn't post to my clients on Monday. I did a story, but I knew that as a society, things were going to be very distracted and all over the place. I didn't post that day because content is really important, and I didn't want to waste any content. It's hard to come by. So, yes, you have to spend time on every single network. You do. And that's part of my job, is touching every single account for every single client every single day.
Great.
Those are good words to live by. I think it's safe to say that you would say that one of the common mistakes is to not diversify where your platforms are. What else would you say is kind of like a mistake in this cannabis industry that you see people making?
Well, if you do put all your eggs into Instagram and you get shut down because you will, or shadow banned because you will, because you didn't hire professionals who understood hashtags and verbiage. And I know that Thrive Pop does, because after we chatted, was it November, Michelle? I don't even remember.
It was a while ago. Yeah.
I went to your Instagram and it was a lot of MJ BizCon stuff, and you did not use cannabis hashtags because you're not supposed to. But if you get shut down, when you get shut down on Instagram, or when you get shadow banned on Instagram, then what do you do? Oh, now I guess we have to have a Twitter account. Now, first of all, now is not the time to go onto Twitter, but it used to be a great platform for brand SEO. But if you are only spending time on one network and it gets shadow banned or shut down, you're losing money every day that happens, because you don't have a presence elsewhere. So it's really important to have a professional social media person who has a strategy and understands all of this. But unfortunately, the millennial nephew who grew up with a phone in his hand but has never run anything about a business online gets those opportunities, and I've lost opportunity. I've had people say to me, "We hired my millennial nephew," and I was just like, "What does that mean?" What Whatever. Your investors are going to expect more than that, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because so many of our clients, I guess the lower end clients, will be like, we're just gonna like, this person kind of knows about social, so we're gonna have them, do it internally. And it's like, it's like, hurts my heart. Because then we start seeing the posts and we're like, oh my God, oh my God.
And it hurts my heart as a startup advisor too, knowing how hard they worked for that pitch deck to get investors. Your investors expect you to hire professionals. Would you hire a grower because they grew up in SoCal? No, you hire growers who have experience in a cultivation. It's just, there's so much concentration on that side without any, I don't know. I think it's respect for the marketing side. There's so little of it. But if you took investors on, they're expecting you to hire the real people who are going to help safeguard their money and make sure that contribute to the growth of that brand or company on social media. So My philosophy of this industry is it's a great industry for everybody who has a new idea, brand, product, tech, anything. But if you've never had a business before or haven't, taken any business classes or anything like that, you're not going to do that well if you don't understand that you have to have a full marketing plan with the
Mhm.
full social media plan and strategy. But it gets frustrating for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's refreshing for us because we're like, we get it, we're here. We, it's like you're our cheerleader right now, advocating for us.
I know. It's like some of that it's kind of like therapy, right?
I know. I'm
It's
like,
like,
you're right. That
"Oh,
is what
I get it.
happens.
Yes, I know. That's how I feel."
Maybe I have a new thing I'm supposed to be doing is cannabis therapy.
No kidding.
Literally.
Yeah,
Cannabis therapy for professionals and just
right.
I'll always be the cheerleader. I always want to support people who do what I do and back them up, but just back up my part of the industry and just say,
Mhm.
we're here. We're the ones that should be hired. But as you said, Michelle, we're gonna do it internally. Our janitor has a great Facebook presence. Okay. Don't tell your investors that.
I know. And it kills me too. Like we work so hard at like developing a brand and everything's beautiful. And then they like take it over. And it's like,
Mhm.
I can't look at it.
My Michigan client hasn't posted in the year since I was let go in April. I was let go at the beginning of April. And Michigan's imploding. I mean, we all know the race to the bottom. There's not that much money, but
Mhm.
there's been nothing posted on a brand that I created online in almost a year. That
Mm.
is so heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
Um, because they're struggling and it's I can tell you exactly why. They don't have anybody managing the brand online.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's- Um. Wow. This has been so therapeutic.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, she's like our therapist. Okay, so when we're getting frustrated, we're just gonna call you Amy. Amy,
I
talk
am
to me.
always open. I
Is
just
this
gotta read.
crazy or make me feel better? Like, am I right? Am I right?
Well, maybe Michelle, you're onto something there that we can talk offline, just a marketing sesh with other
Yeah.
marketers each month where we can vent, where we can rant, and
Mhm.
maybe do a couple bong hits together.
Yeah. All right.
um. I wanted to just ask you uh, two final questions. I know that it's important for us and marketers in the space to be educated and to stay up to date of the things that are just being inundated by all the different platforms. What would you say are some of the best ways to stay knowledgeable about updates or changes, or what resources do you usually tap into?
Everybody should be tapping into Amy Donahue, who offers hourly consulting for marketers at a very discounted price. Because when I say
Absolutely.
I live it, I am constantly digging for other networks or sleepers. Um, I just feel that you have to spend time learning. There's a lot of social media podcasts out there. Don't listen to cannabis podcasts. Listen to social media podcasts. Even though we
Mhm.
can't do a lot of things like buy ads, or boost posts on some networks, it's still important to keep learning. You introduced me as an expert, and I would never call myself an expert because I feel like I am always learning still. And
Mhm.
there are features added to apps all the time. So it's really important to go outside of cannabis and
Mhm.
understand that this position that I do existed before the industry. So I'm on social media today is a great podcast to listen to. But I have been hired by other marketers that say, can you show me what's the best way to use my LinkedIn company page? Which if you don't have, then you should just go out of business today. But how do I use my LinkedIn company page in the feed?
Mm-hmm.
I will show you.
Right.
So it's really not being afraid putting aside your ego and saying, I need help.
Mhm.
And as women in the industry, we should never be afraid to do that. We're supposed to be supporting each other, period, in this society that we live in. That goes for on the professional side as well. Don't be afraid to hire each other out or do trade for something.
Yeah.
But never be afraid to ask, because you should never be afraid to learn something new.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we're just always learning, like, every day, right? And, like,
Yep.
okay, or if I mean, there's just so many changes constantly,
Yep.
and it's like you have to be constantly researching and making sure
Mhm.
you're doing things the best way, and if there is a better way, like, what is that? And so that part is, like, really important, and there's never this spot where you're like, "Okay, I know it all, like, I don't need to learn anymore." It's like,
Mhm.
no, like, we always have to be pushing ourselves to learn, the new techniques and, how
Yep.
can we engage better, like, what's better out there, so that's awesome.
And in fact, after this, in a half an hour, is when I will be digging into the newest Blue Sky features, because Blue Sky is amazing. It's open source, it's a female CEO, and it is constantly evolving and constantly taking feedback from users. And just a
Mhm.
really fun fact, because I also work in psychedelics. Um, their servers are for the users on Blue Sky are all named after different mushroom species, and and I just thought that was the cutest thing and the coolest thing that you're not going to see other platforms do.
Mhm.
So today I will be watching more videos on YouTube about Blue Sky. I think everybody should be creating a presence there now. There are about 30 million users, and it's going up every single day. And
Mhm.
your target audiences might not all be there yet, but starting to get followers and getting on lists and starter packs and things like that. It's about branding, not about selling. So get your butts on there.
Yeah, I never even heard of that, so I'm glad that you brought that up today.
I will give you a class for free, Michelle, just for the opportunity you're giving me right now.
Oh, awesome. You know what well, not my team, but I need a class in the stupid meta. Like, it drives me nuts,
It's
but
awful. I hate it. It's the most clunky thing in the world, and you would think by now it would work well. Uh,
Yeah.
but I mean, for one of my clients, I'll use that just for scheduling. And
Mhm.
I would say 7 out of 10 times the Instagram post doesn't go out. And
Mhm.
no reason, nothing. It's just super clunky. And that's why I say have the Instagram app on your phone. Uh,
Mhm.
it's just, I hate Meta.
yeah, so do
Meta
I.
is
Terrible.
awful.
It's terrible. Yeah, I hate it.
I do.
I also I'm not really a big fan of it.
I know, and I'm always like, "Olivia, help me! I can't figure this out." And it's just like, Hmm, it's crazy, but
Well, Amy, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come on our podcast today. You shared a lot of great insight and where can people find you on the internet? I know you mentioned it, but let's just plug it one more time.
I would say LinkedIn is the best way to find me now. I was having a website built this summer, but I just decided instead of I'm just me. I need to spend my time wisely, and a website is not it. I have over 16,000 connections on LinkedIn. I check every profile before I accept people. I don't send stuff unless I see comments from people and say, hey, oh, that's really interesting. So I'll connect with them. So I'm very choosy, but I'm about to celebrate 21 years on LinkedIn. So that's the best place. It's Amy Donahue, Donohue, not like Phil. But I'm also the fabulous one on Blue Sky. I have a great cannabis industry starter pack there. And a starter pack means it's a list of users that you can click a button at the top that you follow all of them instantly. So that's another great way to create community. So there's starter packs and lists. So yeah, I would say those two are the best. I don't really personally use Facebook or Instagram because I'm on them for my clients. And at the end of the day, those networks aren't fun for me. Personally, while I'm, sitting around eating dinner or watching TV, it's not fun to be where I have to do the majority of my work. I'm on Big Sky.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will catch you guys on the next episode of Marketing That Pops. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for listening with us today. Stay tuned for the latest in web marketing and design from ThrivePop. Want to be a pop star? Head over to thrivepop.com/podcast to join our mailing list for episode notifications, sneak peeks, listener feedback, and more.